When you grow out of good nourishment, you tend to produce good fruit. And this is the topic of this video. As I'm reading through my notes, we see life like we are, energies attract alike. So the way that we are, the energies that we carry inside of ourselves, they carry over to other people and they receive that, and then they are either repelled or attracted towards those energies because they match. Part of that function is insecurities. People have a hard time when they feel insecure about themselves to vibe with higher energy people, meaning people who have their life together, who are more positive, who are believing in themselves, who are confronting the things that they are themselves fearful of confronting in themselves. And you see that, you smell that, you can see that in a person's vibe, in a person's aura, so to speak. And that makes you insecure because you look at the person and the way their body and the way their facial features, the way their clothing, the way with their status symbols and their accessories, the way that they've shaped themselves over many years, over many decades, you see that in order to look like that and have that type of presence, that type of clarity in the eyes, that type of clean skin tone where you feel like, okay, they have cracked the code in some way, they're taking care of themselves, and they have the energy inside of themselves that their life is okay. They are not living in struggle. And if you are then still insecure about yourself, because frankly you do, it always is the question, how do we behave when nobody's watching? What do you do when nobody's looking? How do you really feel on your own by yourself, right? Or how is it really looking between you and your partner? How is it really looking inside of you? And so that's the difference between that. And so we are then repelled by these people. Either we are attracted towards them, but we do not want that. Our ego doesn't allow that. And that was certainly the case for me. I do not mean to be here and lecturing you in some kind of way. I just try to understand and share decoding human behavior, why people behave the way that they do, because I was also asking myself, why am I not successful the way that I wanted to be? That question was in my mind a lot in 2017, 2018, 2019, before I moved here, and I was making this crucial mistake of isolating myself from the successful friends that I did have. Now, fortunately, I didn't have much going for myself apart from this enthusiasm, this motivation, and this zest for life. And people felt attracted towards that because that is also an attractive quality that people want to cultivate in themselves. And when they then see that in you, so they saw that in me, they felt attracted towards that. They wanted to be around me, even though I didn't have any curriculum or any, for action taking that I could back that up with, or any exterior success, right? Or interior success for that matter. But I was making the mistake of becoming triggered by seeing the successful friends that I did have, and I was isolating myself from them because of my ego. I was letting my ego take over and allowing myself to make excuses to not talk to them because I knew what I had to be doing in my business. Like I talked to them, I talked to the same mentors that we both had, the same seminars where we got to meet each other. And I wasn't doing the things that I needed to do, to record the videos, to make the social media content, to do the actions, to gain clients. I was not doing that, and they were. And so the question then became obvious, why wasn't I doing that? And I thought I needed to go and look for the answer to that question. I thought I needed to go look for the answer of what's wrong with me. And obviously I found the answer, but the answer doesn't matter because it's the wrong question to ask. The question of what is wrong with me is not the right question to ask at all because it will lead you to an answer. But the answer doesn't matter. What you need to be asking is not what's wrong with me, but what do I need to do to make my life right? To live in the right way? What do I need to do to change my life circumstances and my habitual thoughts and my environments, my actions, my habits, my mannerisms and my environment? How do I change my actions, what I do each day? And also my mindset of how I evaluate things, because as sensation is being evaluated, it becomes perception, right? Sensation plus evaluation becomes perception. So we evaluate that, we derive the value for us from that. So we perceive something And then we see, is that relevant to us? Does it have value to us? Because somebody, some scientific paper about oxygen levels when you climb a mountain, if you have that goal that you want to climb all of the, whatever they're called, the highest mountains on earth, the big seven, whatever it's called, that's irrelevant information. If it's not to you, then you dismiss it. And so in the same way, some people just dismiss information about opportunity, about wealth, about how to do better in life because they're not programmed towards that. They haven't programmed themselves towards that. And so the whole point of that was, what was the point of that? Yes, that energies attract alike. Well, the point is gone, so we just keep going. Change doesn't happen through wanting to become something you are not, but it happens through accepting what is right now, inspired by Arnold M. Beiser, Flying Without Wings. Yes, change does not happen by exactly the people that you surround yourself with. This is what I wanted to explain, how energies are being repelled or being attracted towards each other. Well, and so I was attracted towards my friends in that way because I wanted to be like them. I wanted to get myself to the point where I was doing the consistent action that builds long-term success consistently. I wanted to do that, but I could not get myself to do that. And so the answer to that is to set yourself up with the life circumstances where this becomes natural. Because what I understood and what I realized for myself, it's not because I didn't have the courage. Yes, that was part of it, for sure. It was not because I wasn't intelligent enough. That certainly wasn't part of it, but because intelligent was one of the things that I brought to the table that I clearly had. And it was also not a lack of hard work. It wasn't a lack of work ethic, because I also brought that to the table. Heck, I was even willing to give up all of my friends in order to basically try to work all day. Now that didn't work, because I ended up then actually not working, because I was just getting lost in unhealthy behaviors due to the fact that I was isolated so much, right? But what we need to take a look at that is, how do we create our life circumstances in a way that they are conducive to us taking the right actions, being in the right environments, and also evaluating things in the right way? Because I was asking myself, what is mindset? What does mindset even mean? And how do we operationalize it basically so that we boil it down to the behaviors that we can change? What kind of change in behaviors do we need to affect in order to affect our action taking and to turn our results? And so mindset is what your mind is set towards. So what are you seeking, right? What's the direction where your mind is going? Where are your thoughts generally set towards? Like, what's the goal in life? What's desirable to you? Where do you go? What's the direction where your thought energy is moving? That's one piece of mindset as I understand it. And I do think that's a pretty accurate definition. I don't think, just recently in 2024, Alex Hormozi came up with the value equation. Like, what is value? We hear this in marketing all the time. And so I don't even think somebody has defined mindset that much. So even though it has been around for many years and decades, I still think I can absolutely innovate in that field by actually bringing a definition to the table that makes sense. And so part of mindset is what your mind is set towards. Where does your thought energy flow to naturally and spontaneously? What do you consider desirable for your life and for yourself based on what you think that you need? And so what the mind is set towards is basically trying to fill the holes that we perceive that we have. And there are some holes that are based on real trauma and things that we believe that we lack inside of ourselves. And there are also things that we really do lack, that are not just based on these psychological phenomena, but they are actually really lacking in our lives. So let me give you some example. My mind was set a lot, and it was holding me back from success, towards women. I never had a girlfriend until I was 23, although I could have. I didn't have any role models, and I was just too proud to ask my friends for that. I was just feeling very weak. I didn't play any sports. I was just smoking cigarettes, drinking alcohol on the weekend. I thought my penis was little. Afterwards, I realized it wasn't even the case. It was just all in my head, right? Because I was just over the top insecure of all of these things, and also was insecure because I've never done that. I thought, like, man, if I make love to that woman and I've never done that, And I'm like, how is that's probably going to be horrible. She's probably going to laugh at me, especially since I'm so small. You know what I mean? And it was challenging. And I realized I rejected myself before I was even giving a woman a chance, or a girl a chance back then, to reject me. And so that was interesting. And the reason why I'm saying that is because, yeah, the thoughts are flowing. And so, yes, energy. So we attract energies that are alike. And we're also repelled by some energies that we don't feel attracted to. So here's another example. As you go on your path to success, you see that a lot of successful businessmen, they had to overcome the loser inside of them, the person that is drawn towards the behaviors that give you the immediate comfort. So oftentimes, even like unless you're making peace with that and you are being empathetic towards that loser part inside of you, you are in opposition to that. You are rejecting that loser part. You're in a way making it wrong or overcoming it or fighting it in a way. And so in that way, you end up oftentimes when you have mated with contempt for the losers, with contempt for the people on the ground, with contempt for, you can call them the peasants, right? Even though this is a horrible word and even though it is a horrible way of thinking about people, but you realize that, man, they are making all of the mistakes that I've corrected in myself. And some of them just have low standards and they don't do the things that I know I had to change within myself. See, this is this opposition towards this inner loser inside of you. And so then you're also in opposition with other people on the outside that mirror these behaviors that you are rejecting in yourself, because you must not do that. You know you can't just binge on food at night and then sleep in until 9 a.m. the next morning. A successful person has overcome these things, and you see the peasants hanging around on a Thursday night in a bar because their friends are there, right? Their friends are in town, whatever, and they drink until 11 or 12 and they sleep in until 9. And then you're like, yeah, like unless you really make peace with the path, with this part of yourself, and you realize that also that is okay, and this is a personal choice, and it's completely fine. Everybody has to take responsibility for dealing with the consequences with their own actions and manners and behaviors. You can make peace with it. But oftentimes, because once you're up and coming, you really you work hard, you go through those motions where you're like, no man, I got to be better than that. I have to find a way to do this differently. I cannot give in to that. Right? So you oftentimes end up with contempt. And rightfully so. And you also see people like that kind of as stupid, because they really are not getting it. And they wonder why their life doesn't work out. And you do, but that's a privilege. And so I'm going through the same process here as well, where I'm like, man, I go through the streets and I'm like, are you guys not seeing this? Are you going to tell me you're really not seeing this? But the thing is, I wasn't seeing that myself either just 3 years ago. I did not get it. And so when you're in it, you realize when everybody that you're spending time is your in-laws and your little family and your friends who are all working in the same place as you, and nobody is making any serious money as a knowledge worker in any kind of leadership position, nobody is doing any sports, you're all just getting busy plucking feathers out of a chicken, cleaning up, arguing about things, blaming each other, then you're like, yeah, of course you're going to be poor. Yeah, it must be so. Where are the ideas going to come from that are going to differentiate yourself and that are so niche and so specific and so valuable that people are going to pay you large sums of money for that? How is it going to come from when you're spending your time plucking the feathers out of chickens and blaming each other? But I also didn't understand it before, and people certainly do not understand it. And that's really wild. And so we got to have compassion for ourselves, because I, for example, being born in Germany, there were many generations of development, and you see that, oftentimes, there's this great marketing influencer called Gary Vaynerchuk. Maybe you've heard of him. He's written a few books. He is quite popular in that space. So if you're into that topic, you probably know him anyway. So his story is, his father immigrated into the United States from Russia and opened a liquor store. And then he took the store from whatever number to a 2-digit million number. 8 figures, 65 or so, and so goes generation over generation. But it oftentimes is like that. You know, the parents who came from India, from Malaysia, and settled down in Australia or in the UK or in Germany somewhere, it's like they worked their whole life just to like make it through that. Still dealing with all of the trauma that they had from their parents, because they probably grew up somewhere on the farm and their parents beat them and they had no time for them. The parents didn't even know how to raise children because they were basically just having sex at some point and like didn't even want the kids, basically. And the kids felt that. They really did. And it wasn't planned that they were like, oh, well, I guess we have some children now. But you don't have the same love for the child as if you truly were intentional about it. And so that was the reality of a lot of those kids. And then they grew up and oftentimes they got beaten and punished and talked to in ways that is like not conducive to a children growing up. But also these parents did their best, working on a farm, being around animals all the time, going through a lot of suffering and whatever that is there with freaking mosquitoes and tooth decay and feet fungus, like whatever shit you're dealing with when you're living on the land. Like it's not easy. It's really not easy. And so, yeah, they just did their best and had no understanding about psychology at all whatsoever, of how to talk to each other, how to resolve marital conflicts. They probably had a lot of things about, because they were looking for love in each other, didn't have that in themselves. They didn't understand these dynamics of when I judge myself, it goes cold inside of me. So the more dependent I am on my partner. And when my partner doesn't give it to me, because first of all, as a man and as a woman, when you're very needy, that's repulsive. So you gotta be in your own energy, full of love in order to attract that from your partner. And then you end up blaming your partner because you're not feeling it. The partner is actually feeling repelled by you, but you don't get it because you don't have any knowledge about this psychological functioning that's happening. You blame the partner, you blame the children, and oftentimes, you know, you feel cheated by life because you grow up and then at some point you realize you're 32 or 35 or like 42, and then you're like in the farm and you have grown a belly and like your wife has gotten fat after the 4th child, and then you're like, well, is that really life? You know, and you had poor nutrition and then the little aches start and then your life's basically shit. And some people really feel cheated and betrayed by life, and then they put that onto their children, oftentimes through physical violence. And then these children are all traumatized, and maybe their parents were good enough to save up some money through their time on the farm, letting the land grow in value, and then selling half of that to send their children to college. And then these children, that's their only way out of that. They had parents who worked on the land, in the farm, shitting into a hole, and dealing with mosquitoes on their ass while they did that. Right? It's like it's and tooth decay and like all kinds of things. And so they then went to college. They had the same patterns of their parents of like pushing their feelings away. And then the children of them, they then start to have, you know, become a YouTuber, have some digital marketing consulting. They become a knowledge worker of some kind. They become a consultant. They become, yeah, quality assurance, compliance professional, whatever, you know, an accountant. Whatever it might be, right? And so, yeah, that's how it oftentimes goes. And so we gotta have, yeah, real compassion for people, because it takes oftentimes generations. Now you can clear out all of your things and all of the generational patterns in your lifetime. But man, that also takes time, because life gets quite busy. I mean, you gotta get up, and then you only have like a few hours until you feel hungry for the first time. And then a lot of people, they don't have any awareness about their time, so they prepare the food themselves, they eat it themselves. I mean, that's what you always do, right? But they prepare it, they clean up, and then it's like always midday, and they're like, oh fuck, I guess I gotta cook again. And then they rest for a little bit because they're beating themselves up in their head, and then the whole day is gone. They haven't done anything, so they're behind. They're behind on their bills, they're behind on skill development, they're not taking care of their body, and then there's obviously no time for inner work, and especially when you're fearful, because this is part of everybody's life experience also, that you got to confront these things inside of yourself that you are fearful of, that you're afraid of, that you do not want to see, that you wish that weren't there. And if you fall into the traps, so like, look, if you don't have this piece of mindset, if you don't have this piece of understanding that directs your actions in the way that you are willing to confront these things and you see the value in that, You know, if you're just hiding from that because it's uncomfortable and you really think there is no consequence because you don't understand how the human psyche works and the repercussions and the consequences of all of that, then you're just going to end up avoiding that. And that is very challenging and very sad and has huge repercussions when you constantly end up running away from things because it saps the energy out of you. And it also lowers your energy. You become negative in a certain way because you have parts within yourself that you haven't fully allowed. You haven't looked at those things. You're still afraid of what you're going to find out when you're just alone by yourself and there's nobody and nothing around stimulating you. You're afraid what you're going to find. You're afraid of your destructive impulses. You're afraid of your sexual drive. You're afraid of trauma of the past that you look at. You're afraid of confronting people in the past that did you wrong, likely your parents if they violated you in some way. To confront what you really want in your life, your own insecurities of like, I actually want that, but I feel I'm not good enough. Well, of course you're not. You're only good enough once you've done it a few times. And that means doing it a few times and failing, then you have done it in a few times and then you're going to succeed. It's like, but people don't have this perspective on life. People don't get it, right? And we're not encouraged like that. We don't have anybody that we can talk to. There are all kinds of drug recovery places where you go to like that, but what's like a life center where you just go to and you can sit with some elders and ask questions? Where the fuck is that? That's not there, and not even like a telephone line. Like, we don't have that. People don't get how life works yet, and we're in 2025. I know that sounds like hubris for me to say as a 30-year-old, but like, I think people don't really understand how life works, and I had the privilege of like spending 10 years and more, like 9 years and 9 months, and more than 10,000 hours in myself in this deep reflection process of understanding and decoding my own psyche. It all starts with actually learning to perceive your thoughts. I completely remember what that was like when I was in Australia. I remember what that was like. I was on this old ferry boat that they made into a hostel kind of place for the workers of the orange farms where I was working. So I was picking oranges at that time. And I was like probably at 2 feet between me and the ceiling, so I couldn't really sit up in my bed. I had to lay down on the top of the bunk bed. And it was really wild. Because for the first time I learned to perceive my thoughts. I was hearing them, starting to hear them. And they were just like, how do you call that? Fetzen in German, like little scraps, right, of thoughts. Just word scraps. They weren't clearly articulated thought patterns and thought streams. They were just, and advertising jingles and other people's thoughts and all kinds of things. It was just babble, right? And it was very, very wild. And I realized for the first time, it's like, now I'm actually aware of my thoughts. Because I was spending so much time on my own, and before I was just not aware of it. I was just getting up, being with my family, going to school, coming home, going on the computer, watching porn, wanking off, wiping it away, doing my homework, watching some TV, and going to bed. That was my life when I was in school. And I'm like, yeah, of course you didn't see and didn't hear your thoughts with that type of life. And of course with this type of life, when you're just doing what everybody else is doing, I wasn't even that bad. I mean, I was doing drugs, I was doing alcohol, but not crazy amounts of real hardcore drugs. Bit of weed, a bit of amphetamine. Nothing too crazy. A lot of alcohol though, way too much. But nothing too crazy, and I was a good student. So like, I was really kind of, below normal. But I'm just saying, it's like, even with that, even if you're not that bad and extreme, and you're actually a good student, you don't know how life works. And you're still taking a lot of wrong actions. Because what you're going to be building in those years is your skills, your real life knowledge, and your body. So you actually go into life confident with like real life skills and applicable knowledge. And so that's exactly why a lot of entrepreneurs who understand the value of real life education feel cheated by the school system. And so but what's also true is that you do have a lot of time to actually teach yourself some real world skills as well. And so I see this now whenever I go here and train MMA. The people that I'm training with, a lot of them are teenagers or just turning 18, younger people, and I enjoy that. Because frankly, I don't get beaten up so badly, so I can really attend every class, which is nice, right? So you don't get kicked to pieces if you're training with like a whole bunch of folks who are way more ahead of you. That's nice. I can flow. It's chill. But it's also good to see how it can be. You know what I mean? If you train sports, and especially combat sports, you learn like so much about life, much more than you ever do in school, about humility and hard work and what it really takes to relate to one another. And then you got to learn the school skills also, and the real life skills, because school actually does teach us a lot of important things. You know, the calculus, arithmetics, formulas, that's all very important, but yeah, it's not done right in the way that they do that. So, efficiency. But yeah, after government efficiency, we probably get school system efficiency. That's probably inevitable. But yeah, so healing means resolving that which prevents the natural flow of energy in our system. Most physical symptoms are either due to a lack of expression or an expression of something that is not you.